On New Year's Eve, my boyfriend made everyone at the party write their resolutions on slips of paper and put them in a jar. In January, I found out he'd secretly replaced mine with his own, and the way it backfired still makes me smile. I'm Kayla, 25, living in Denver with my boyfriend Jake. He's one of those improvement junkies, always reading habit books, tracking his steps, making spreadsheets of goals. I like the idea of self-improvement, but I'm more quiet about it. We hosted a small New Year's Eve get-together with friends last year. String lights in the living room, cheap champagne, a playlist of songs everyone knew the words to. At 11:30 p.m., Jake announced, "I've got an idea. Before midnight, everyone writes one resolution and one thing they're going to leave behind." He passed around a stack of index cards and a jar. People played along. I'm going to stop texting my ex. I'm going to learn to cook something besides microwave ramen. I'm going to start my own business. When the jar came to me, I hesitated. Jake watched me a little too closely. The thing I wanted to leave behind wasn't chocolate or Netflix. It was something bigger. I wrote, "I will leave behind relationships where I feel small," and folded the paper before I lost my nerve. For my resolution, I wrote, "I will take my writing seriously enough to let people see it." I shoved both into the jar, heart pounding, and passed it on. At midnight, we did the countdown, kissed, shouted Happy New Year, confetti everywhere. Someone suggested we read the resolutions out loud, but Jake said, No, too personal. We'll read them in private tomorrow. The next afternoon, he sat on the couch, jar in his lap. "Let's see what everyone wrote," he said. He pulled out a slip, laughed. "Oh, this one's funny. I will leave behind relationships where I feel small. That's dramatic." My stomach dropped. That was mine. He read it like it was a stranger's. He pulled out another. "Here's another. I will take my girlfriend more seriously and stop making everything about me." Who wrote that? He looked around, smirking. I knew immediately something was wrong. Later, when he went to shower, I dug the jar out of the recycling bin. There were crumpled slips with my handwriting, words crossed out, tossed at the bottom. On top were two neat, clean slips in his handwriting, ones he'd assigned to me when he read them aloud. He'd seen what I'd actually written and decided it didn't fit his narrative. I didn't confront him that day. Instead, I quietly bought my own little glass jar and a pack of sticky notes and put them on my desk. Every time I did something that made me feel bigger instead of smaller, I wrote it down and dropped it in. I submitted a short story to a magazine. I told my boss I wanted a promotion instead of hoping she'd notice. I said no when Jake made fun of my outfit and changed nothing. By March, the jar was half full. By April, I had my first paid writing gig, $150 for an essay about boundaries in relationships. I didn't show it to Jake. When I tried to talk about my work, he'd change the subject to his gym progress or his new watch. In May, he held up a too-tight dress I hated and said, "You should wear this more. It's the only thing that really flatters you." I heard my own New Year's words in my head. Leave behind relationships where I feel small. I went to my jar, pulled out a random note without looking, and read it. Today, I chose myself when it was uncomfortable. That night, I packed a suitcase. When I told him I was leaving, he rolled his eyes. "This is about that stupid resolution thing, isn't it?" he said. "You're being dramatic. Everyone makes jokes on New Year's. You can't hold me to that." "I'm not holding you to anything," I said. "I'm holding myself to it." I moved in with a friend temporarily. My life didn't become a movie montage overnight. It was messy. Some days I wondered if I'd overreacted. Then I'd pull another note from the jar and remember why I'd started. In December, nearly a year later, I hosted a tiny New Year's Eve with two close friends. No big speeches, no forced vulnerability, just us and some cheap champagne. At 11:55 p.m., one of them asked, "Are we doing resolutions this year?" I smiled and pulled out my old jar, now full of folded notes. I dumped them onto the coffee table like confetti. "These were my resolutions," I said. "All year. I think they did their job." We spent midnight not promising to change, but reading aloud the things we'd already done. Jake texted me at 12:07 a.m. "New year, new us?" I deleted the message without replying. That was my final resolution, one I didn't even need to write down.